You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Are you ready for summer break already? I can't believe the end of the school year is almost here, and for some of you, it's only a couple of weeks away. But before you completely check out, there's one thing I totally recommend that you do, and that's create an end-of-the-year report. So I have a special training for you guys on how to use an end-of-the-year report to improve your program and advocate for your role. So join me to learn the ins and outs of one of my all-time favorite data tracking tools, the end-of-the-year report, so you can interpret and showcase data to improve your program and advocate for your role. You guys, this is one of my favorite trainings to do. Counselors find it so helpful, and I just love helping you guys find the data on the work that you're already doing so you can show it to your stakeholders and really improve your program. You don't want to miss this. I have a few times available for you, so go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/data and find the time that works best for you. I'm going to have 2 or 3 times. This will be live. Please show up live, and if you do, you will receive a copy of an end-of-the-year report for absolutely free. Go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/data to sign up. See you there. Hey there, thanks for listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. So this month, guys, I want to talk to you all about data. Now, this is kind of a theme that I do toward the end of the year because if you know me and if you've been sticking around for a while, you know I love helping you guys advocate for your role and improve your program. And one of my favorite ways to do that is with an end-of-the-year report. Now, you may have just heard me talk about my training that's coming up next week where I'm going to be giving you a free end-of-the-year report if you show up live. And in that training, I'm going to be showing you exactly how to use that report. But before we do that, well, first, go ahead and sign up for that so you don't miss it. stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/data. But today's episode, I want to talk to you about diving into the data. So today I'm going to give you 2 tools you can use. And then next week, I'll give you another 2 tools you can use. And then knowing all of that, you can compile it into your end-of-the-year report. Can you tell I've had my coffee already? I'm excited about this. It's one of those things where I see the outline ahead of time and I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself. So let me break it down for you. We're going to be talking about diving into your counseling data. And there's 2 areas here to break it down. First are the services that you've provided, and second is student progress. So I love a good alliteration here. So we have SP and SP, or would that be is that an alliteration, an acronym? I don't know. Obviously not an English teacher over here, but I like things to match. So I'm like services provided, SP, student progress, SP. Makes sense in my head. I don't know about you. But today I want to talk to you all about how to track services provided data, and then next week I'll talk to you all about how to track student progress data. Then we can compile all of this together in an amazing end-of-the-year report. Okay, so services provided. What do I mean when I say that? Well, quantifying the services that you've provided or the number of sessions that you've provided to students, also known as just how many kids that you've seen this year, allows you to advocate for your role and show a need for your position. So this data that I'm talking about is showing who you're seeing and how you're seeing them. So basically, I want you to think about all the students that you're seeing this year. You're seeing students through class lessons. You're seeing students through small groups. And you're seeing students individually. You also have drop-in students that you're seeing. And all of this is so important to tally so you can show your principal, you can show your stakeholders, look at all of these hours that I'm spending on direct student services. I need to spend more time on direct student services, not on these, non-counselor duties that I'm being inside, not on being test coordinator, not on doing these other little tasks that aren't part of my role. So I'm always telling counselors to advocate for themselves, but let's be real, it's kind of scary to come to your principal and to be like, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing according to ASCA. You don't really want to come across that way. But if you have the data to back you up, if you have the numbers and you're like, look how many, hours I spent in direct student services, maybe it's a great number. Maybe you're like, this was 70% of my time was spent in direct services. This is amazing. I want to continue this ratio. Or maybe you're on the other end and you're like, I only spent 20% of my contract hours in direct student services. That's not good. I want to be doing, making more of an impact. How can we make my position where I have more time to see students directly? So you're like, yes, that sounds good. I want to do it, but you need the data to back you up. So there's a few different ways that you can collect this data. First is by looking at your calendar. Now, I personally love using a digital calendar like Google Calendar, and I track when I meet with students. So if I'm going to see a group, I'll schedule them in my calendar, reoccurring 6 to 8 week sessions. Or if I'm seeing an individual, same thing. They have a spot in my calendar. Maybe you're a pen and paper kind of person. That's fine too. Either way, I'm sure you've been kind of, at least have a schedule somewhere of when you're seeing kids. You may be thinking, I haven't documented or done any kind of log. And no worries, we'll get to a log in a second. If you have a log, that's fantastic. But if not, even just a calendar helps. So think back to your schedule. How do you know who you're seeing each week? That's what I want you to look at, wherever you've been tracking that. So in my case, it's usually on a Google Calendar. Go through, and if it's digital, it's great because you can just use that search feature. Search, the group name, and then you can see how many sessions you met with them. Add it up. Oh, I met with them 8 times for 30 minutes. That's 4 hours. Same thing with individual students, search for their name in your calendar. Oh, I met with this student 5 times for 20 minutes. And you can go through and just log this down, right? That's a way to figure out how often that you met with your kiddos. And maybe as you're doing this exercise, you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm kind of a mess. Like I have this written down here. Some stuff's on my calendar, some stuff's not. It's okay. Relax. Just get the data that you can. But this is so good to know for next year. Know that ahead of time you want to set up a really good calendar system. That way you can track the data easily going forward. Okay, so that's the first thing you can do is just look at your calendar and simply count it up. The second way you can do this, it's kind of a 2-part thing. I call it a counseling hub. I'll link to it in the show notes. Impact members, you already have access to all of this, of course, but it's a counseling log and a caseload spreadsheet, and I use these things together to track the students who I've served. So a counseling log, I simply have a Google sheet, and I go in there and I write the date of when I'm meeting with a student, their name, briefly what we worked on, and the amount of time that I met with them. So if you've been keeping any kind of log, even if you've just been jotting this down in a folder, maybe you've already been doing a digital log, but either way, now's the time to go back and see, oh, okay, I met with this student for 30 minutes on this date, for 10 minutes on this date. Hopefully this will just mirror the information you already have in your calendar, and you can just cross-reference it to make sure you didn't lose anyone. But if you have those frequent flyer kiddos, if you have those students who are just dropping in here and there for help, you still want to log that time. And that's where the counseling log can save you, because those students aren't going to be on your Google Calendar. For example, on my Google Calendar, I could have a class lesson, a small group, and a couple individual kiddos scheduled, but I'm not going to have them there when John walks in the office with a question, or that I need to help him with some coping skills or something like that. Or if you're doing some push-in support, some of that stuff may not be on your calendar, like it may not be scheduled ahead of time, but those are still direct student services that you're providing and that you want to log. So that's where the counseling log can come in handy. So again, I'm sure you've been doing this, even if you've kind of been piecemealing it together, or maybe you already have a super organized system. Either way, you can refer to this to collect these services provided data. Now, maybe you haven't been doing this. Again, here's your inspiration for next year to get started. And like I said, I'll link to a template I have for you guys in the show notes, so you can go ahead and get started with it. It's not too late to get started. I mean, even if you only have a few weeks of data, at least you're starting to track something. Some data is better than no data, I always say. And the caseload spreadsheet is really similar. So the caseload spreadsheet, the log is tracking the actual number of times you're seeing the student. The caseload spreadsheet is tracking the number of students who you're seeing, if that makes sense. So for example, the caseload spreadsheet is just going to have a list of every student you're seeing. Their name's going to be on there one time, unless you're seeing them in 2 different forms. So if you're seeing them in a group and you're seeing them individually, their name might be on there twice, but you would indicate that under the type of services provided. But basically, let's say you have 20 kids on your caseload, you're seeing 10 of them in groups and 10 of them individually, you would have 20 names listed there. That looks a little different than your counseling log. The counseling log, you're going to have that same student name on there multiple times based on the different dates that you saw them. This is kind of a visual thing, so it's a little difficult to explain via podcast, but I hope you're getting the hang of it. I have a blog post I'll link to as well that has some visuals for you guys when it comes to this. So you can use that caseload spreadsheet to go through and just say, oh, this is my caseload. These are the number of kids that I've been seeing. Maybe you already have this. All you have to do is simply go in and count. If you don't have one, just think about who are those kids on your caseload. Who are the kids in your small groups? Who are the kids that you're seeing individually? Write their names down, and that way you can track how many students you're serving. So what you can do is you can use this data. So services provided is two things: the number of students that you're seeing and the hours that you're spent seeing them. So you can say, I served 10 small groups, each of 5 students. That's 50 students that I saw. And I saw 10 kiddos individually this year. And I, did a class lesson once a month for each of our classes. So that's, however many classes you have times the once a month. Then you can go through and track the hours as well. So you're showing the number of students that you've served and the number of hours that you've spent serving these students. This data can be super powerful. Awesome, guys. That is how you track services provided data using a Google Calendar, counseling log, and caseload spreadsheets. Next week, I'm going to talk to you all about how to use student progress data tools. So stay tuned for that. But I really, really hope I'll see you live next week. Please show up live to get a free end of the year report. That is for my free training that I'm doing for you guys on how to use an end of the year report to improve your program and advocate for your role. If you're at all interested in data, or if you're completely overwhelmed with it, this is for you. I'm going to show you some simple steps and provide that free template for you guys so you'll have everything you need to wrap up this school year with a pretty bow. Okay, I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.